Hi, this is Rudy Jones. Welcome to That Was the Week That Was in South Carolina College Baseball for April the 13th through 19th. This is a weekly feature I do as part of my coverage of college baseball in the state of South Carolina at PalmettoStateBaseball.com. You'll find daily schedules and scores, a player of the day, box score links when I have them available, and things like that at PalmettoStateBaseball.com. I provide in-game updates on my X handle of Palmetto Base. And tonight we're going to just look back at some of the things went on this past week, take a look at the team of the week, the team rankings, the vibes as to who's hot and who's not, and also a brief look at the schedule for next week. So let's look back at some of the things that went on over this past week in college baseball. On Tuesday, Clemson got a nice win over Charlotte in the at Truist Field in Uptown Charlotte. The Tigers had a big first inning and then held on to the game to get the 7-3 win. Some other midweek games. College of Charleston got a nice win over USC Upstate as part of a winning streak that the Cougars built. Citadel beat Charleston Southern for the second straight week. At that time, that got them to 500 on the season. And USC Sumter split a doubleheader with number 16 ranked Walter State in junior college play. Walter State is a power out of eastern Tennessee, out of Morristown, and Sumter's been playing well this year as well. Also, Coastal Carolina went up to play Wake Forest and lost a game. That was the second straight week they played Wake Forest, lost in this game. Walford got a nice win over Presbyterian as part of a winning streak. At that point they ran their winning streak up to 5 games. Also, a nice non-conference win for Francis Marion. They beat Wingate in a game on Tuesday. The Patriots have been playing awfully well right now. Also, on Wednesday, USC Aiken and Newberry had a midweek game, and Aiken got a win in that. I tell you, I like the fact that there are 3 different Division II conferences, really 4 if you count the SIAC, and you can always get some pretty decent non-conference matchups of Division II teams in the midweek in the state of South Carolina. It's such a small state. It's not an extremely large, long road trip for someone to go over and play the other teams. Looking on to the weekend, of course, Clemson started its series against number 9 Virginia on Thursday night. They got some good pitching from Aiden Canuck for a while. He struck out 10, but the Cavaliers eventually wound up to win that first game. Clemson came back to win game 2, and then the Wahoos won the final game of the series to take it 2-1. I know Clemson was hoping to make some hay with a win. They had their chances, but again, it came out 2-1 on the short end of a 2-1 series result. Also, big weekend for Winthrop. They played USC Upstate in the Big South. They played 3 really good games. First game score was 3-1. Second game's 4-3. And the third game score, Winthrop had to rally late to tie it just to send it to extra innings, and they got a run in the 10th inning to win it 6-5 and complete a series sweep. So that kept Winthrop atop the Big South Conference standings. That was a good win for them. USC Upstate is a dangerous team, got a very potent offense, and Winthrop held them to 9 runs for 3 games. That's pretty good. Elsewhere, South Carolina played Mississippi State. Had their chances, wound up losing all 3. Second game wasn't really competitive. The other 2 were pretty good. Carolina just could not figure out the Bulldogs pitching staff, and the Gamecocks keep killing themselves with mistakes. I think that just about every time USC goes out, they're proving that they've got some flaws that some of the great Carolina teams of the past did not have. They have defensive issues. It's very rare that the Ray Tanner teams beat themselves with their defense. That happens to Carolina frequently this year. They cannot hit in the clutch. They struck out 44 times against Mississippi State. That's way too many. They did not hit the ball particularly well. It's just Carolina got a little boost when they fired Paul Maneri and Monty Lee took over. But the harsh reality is most of the other teams in the SEC have more talent than Carolina, and it's showing. Mississippi State, whenever they needed something to get done, it seemed like they got it done. But Carolina, on the other hand, they scrapped and clawed, and then they do something to shoot themselves in the foot. But anyway, they did go 0-3 for the weekend after having a nice midweek win over Davidson. They even struggled in that game. They got a 5-1 lead, or 5-1 lead after one inning, and wound up having to scramble to rally to win that game. Davidson's pretty much an average team. But Carolina, I think, has proven themselves to be an average team quite as well. Elsewhere for the weekend, Coastal Carolina got 2 wins against Georgia State, and then on Sunday, they had some control issues in the 8th inning. They had 3 hit batsmen and 2 wild pitches in one inning, and that's when Georgia State scored 6 runs to take an 11-5 victory. Elsewhere, College of Charleston got a 2-1 series win over William and Mary. They had a chance in the middle game. They rallied to go ahead, and William and Mary came back and beat them by 2 runs, 7-5. Wofford, 3 straight run rule wins over UNC Asheville. The Terriers are putting up a lot of runs right now. They've got an 8-game winning streak going on. North Greenville, speaking of winning streaks, has a 15-game winning streak. They swept Shawan after getting a midweek win, and the Trailblazers have a 2-game lead in the Conference Carolinas race with 1 week of conference games remaining. We'll get into that later. Interesting series between Francis Marion and High Point. Francis Marion won the first game pretty handily. Second game on Saturday, Erskine scored 8 runs in the bottom of the 8th and wound up winning that game. But then Francis Marion came back and drilled the Flying Fleet in Game 2 with 25 runs. Over the weekend, Ethan McAnally became the school's single-season home run leader, and Charlie Bussey III became Francis Marion's career home run leader. He hit his 31st home run of his career in Saturday's second game, and he did it in a fitting fashion. He hit a grand slam. Elsewhere, High Point played Charleston Southern in a 3-game Big South series. The Cougars kind of got roughed up in the first 2 games, but they rallied in Game 3, to salvage the series finale. So that was a good win to have them leaving with a better taste in their mouth as we go through there. So let's take a look at the team of the week, etc., for this past week. From a team of the week, I just had to go with Winthrop after what they did. They went 4-0 last week. They beat Elon, then they went 3-0 against USC Upstate. Big conference series win. They stayed in first place in the Big South, even though High Point is coming up and trying to gain ground on them. High Point is now a half game behind. They've actually played 3 more games than Winthrop, but Flying Fleet are ahead in percentage basis, or actually behind percentage basis, but ahead by a half game in that situation. But still, it was a good week for Winthrop. Went 4-0, especially with that win over USC Upstate on Sunday. Excuse me, I just found a mistake I'm correcting as we go through here, so I apologize for that. Hopefully you won't see it on the website. But anyway, as I mentioned, Winthrop was the team of the week. The other good candidates for team of the week, Wofford, they won 8 straight. They went 4-0 this past week. Voorhees had a nice series win over Stillman in conference play. Over Oakwood. The Tigers stole 50 bases in that series. 50. They went 16, 16, and 18 in stolen bases. Benedict got a nice series win over Tuskegee in the SIAC. They went 3-0. They're now 19-10 overall, 17-10 in the conference. Lander got a series sweep of USC Beaufort, run ruled them in all 3 games in the Peach Belt. Spartanburg Methodist got a road series win in the Appalachian Athletic Conference, so that was a nice win for them. USC Aiken went 2-1 at Georgia College, or they kind of got surprised in the middle game. USC Sumter 3-2, but all 5 games were against ranked teams. They got a 2-1 series win over Florence Darlington Tech, and went 1-1 against Walter State. So it was a good win for Coach Will Thompson's team. And with that win, they knocked those 2 wins. They knocked Florence Darlington Tech out of the race for the regular season championship in Region 10. I'll talk about more in the standings later on. All right, my team rankings for this past week. Not a whole lot of changes, but there were some. Coastal Carolina, even though they went 2-2, I kept them at number 1 among NCAA Division I teams in the state. They're 28-11. One reason I kept them there is Clemson also went 2-2 for the week. Granted, the Tigers lost two of their losses. Their two losses were to number down Virginia, but Clemson had their chances, but I just didn't see a way to move them ahead of Coastal. Again, Tigers 2-2 last week, 25-16 overall. Winthrop with a 4-0 win. I kept them at number 3 in the state. They are 27-13 now. Wofford, I moved up a spot from 5th to 4th ahead of South Carolina. Gamecocks beat the Terriers head-to-head twice, but I just think the Terriers are playing better than Carolina right now. Wofford's won 8 straight, as I mentioned. They're 29-11 after that big series sweep of UNC Asheville. South Carolina, I dropped down a spot to 5th place after that 3-game losing streak. Yes, they lost to Mississippi State, who was ranked number 17, but they also didn't play particularly well. Pitching was decent for the most part. They could not get key hits, made some defensive lapses that cost them. 2 of the 4 runs on Sunday that they allowed were unearned. Base running, questionable decisions on the bases, I guess, for lack of a better term. But again, USC is just not playing very good baseball right now. College of Charleston, on the other hand, they're now up to 19-20. They are 3-1. This 3-1 this past week. I moved them up from 8th to 6th. The Citadel, I moved up 2 spots from 9th to 7th. They were 2-2 last week, 18-21 on the regular season. They beat East Tennessee State in the middle game of that Southern Conference series. That was a good win for them. They got the midweek win over Charleston Southern. At 8, I have Charleston Southern. They went 1-3, but that was a nice win over High Point to give them some momentum as the week ended. And they're now in 8th. They fell 1 spot from 7th. USC Upstate, I dropped down from 6th to 9th. They had the midweek loss to College of Charleston, so that was easy to move the Cougars ahead of them. And the losses to Winthrop, they were close, but it's just one of those things that for this past week, some other teams played better than the Spartans did among Division I schools in the state. And at number 10, I kept Presbyterian. They were 1-3, got that win up at Longwood. They had a chance to get another one, but could not come through with it. They are now 9-32, left them in 10th place. Among NCAA Division II teams, there were just a couple of minor moves. North Greenville, of course, they kept them at number 1. They were 4-0 last week. They've won 15 straight games, 40-7 overall. Francis Marion stayed at number 2. They were 3-1 last week, 37-9 overall. USC Aiken, I kept at number 3, 3-1 last week, 33-13 overall. Lander, kept them at number 4. They were 3-0 last week, 27-18 overall. They've won 5 straight games. Erskine, I moved ahead of Newberry. The Flying Fleet got that nice win over Francis Marion over the weekend. The Flying Fleet are now 24-22, 1-2 last week. They moved up from 6th to 5th in my rankings. Newberry went 0-4. Granted, it was against some very good teams. Lost to USC Aiken, and also dropped a 3-game series to South Atlantic Conference leader Catawba. But just feel, they're kind of on a losing streak. They've lost 5 straight now to drop to 24-22. So I moved them down from 5th to 6th. Benedict, I kept at number 7. They were 3-0 last week, 19-10. I just think there's a gap between Benedict and the rest of the teams that are above them. It would be hard for them to climb up higher than they are right now. Anderson, it was 2-2 last week. They lost to North Georgia, which is no shame. North Georgia, regular season champion in the Peach Belt Conference. The Trojans really lost a game they felt like they should have won on Friday night. They were up in the 9th inning, up 5-0. Caleb Owens had pitched a brilliant game through 8 innings. He pitched a shutout. He leaves with them up 5-0. And lo and behold, Virginia Wise, which is far behind the Trojans in the South Atlantic Conference standings, scored 5 runs and then scored another run in the 10th and win it by a score of 6-5. That one hurt. But the Trojans came back to win both games on Saturday, including a come-from-behind win on Game 1 against the Cavaliers. So Anderson's now at 22-23 overall, kept them at number 8 in the standings. Southern Wesleyan lost a series they probably should not have. Barton's below them in the standings. The Warriors did lose the first 2, but they won the final game of the series on Saturday, 16-12. And near Saturday's doubleheader, Cole Kirshner hit 3 homers and drove in 8 runs, so it was a nice day for him. Coker went 1-3 last week, but that included being swept by Carson Newman. I left them in 10th place. USC Beaufort got a midweek win over Savannah State, but then they lost all 3 games to Lander by run rule, and they went to 12-31, and they stayed in 11th place. And Claflin run ruled by Flagler 3 times in the Peach Belt Conference. 0-4 for the week, 4-33 overall. They've lost 7 straight games, and I kept them at 12th place. Among NAI and National Christian College Athletic Association teams, Spartanburg Methodist got a nice AAC win over Union Commonwealth. Union Commonwealth is a team that struggled. They don't have a particularly good record. I think they're 3 and maybe 23 in the conference. But the Pioneers moved back over 500 with a 3-0 week, so they're 22-21. Kept them at number 1. Columbia International fell to 17-29 overall by going 1-2 last week. They won a home game against Carolina University on Friday, then moved up to Mocksville, North Carolina to play the Bruins on their home field and lost both games there. So the Rams on a 2-game losing streak. Morris got a split doubleheader against Payne on Saturday. Dillon and Levy had a couple of good games for them, and the Hornets are playing pretty good baseball right now for that level. They're now 9-15. Bob Jones went 1-2 last week. They beat one of their big rivals in Toccoa Falls on Friday, but Toccoa Falls came back and won both games on Saturday. Jacob Highsmith had a couple of big games for the Bruins. Bob Jones is now 12-24. That 12 wins is the second most in school history. They've only been playing since 2021, granted, but they win one more game to tie the school record for most wins, and they've got postseason, the region tournament in the National Christian College Athletic Association to come yet. Voorhees went 3-0 last week, as I mentioned, against Oakwood. I just don't think they can move up and catch Bob Jones right now with the way they're doing, but the Tigers are on a 3-game winning streak. Florence Darlington Tech leads the junior college rankings. The Stingers, granted, they were 2-2 last week. They lost 2 games to USC Sumter, which I know they were not counting on, and those 2 losses contributed to them being knocked out of the regular season race in the Region 10 standings. Florence Darlington Tech is 42-10 now. They lost their last 2 games, those 2 games to Sumter. Sumter, I still have at second place among the teams in the junior college teams in the state. 3-2, as I mentioned, all games last week against ranked teams. They're 29-18 overall under first-year coach Will Thompson, so he's doing well. And they're on a 2-game winning streak. USC Union got 3 wins over USC Lancaster and moved past the Lancers in the Region 10 standings. Union is now in 4th place by 2 games ahead of the Lancers. Union is 28-19 on a 3-game winning streak after a 3-0 week. Conversely, Lancaster went 0-3 last week. They're 22-23. They dropped below 500, and they're on a 3-game losing streak. USC Salkehatchie, it was not a good week for the Indians. They had to play the best team in the region, and Gaston College is ranked as high as 2nd or 3rd in some of the national polls. And so it was a rough weekend for the Indians. They also had some off-the-field issues with an electrical problem at the stadium or near the stadium, and they had to postpone one of Saturday's games until Sunday. I know that the Indians are wanting to have some kind of a positive finish to the way things are going on, but they've really been having a tough time right now. They've lost 31 straight games. In 6th place is Denmark Tech, which has completed its season with a 1-12 record. How about the schedule for next week, this coming week? There are no games on Monday involving state teams. On Tuesday, just looking at a few things going on, Newberry Mount Olive meet in Florence at Carolina Bank Field for the 2nd time. Another good non-conference matchup, even though Mount Olive's having a little bit of a down season this year. Erskine goes over to North Georgia for a 4 o'clock game. That's a challenge for the Flying Fleet. But Erskine, I'm sure, feels like they're up to it. North Georgia, the Peach Belt regular season champ. Lander has a trip up to Wingate, North Carolina to play Wingate, a nationally ranked team out of the South Atlantic Conference. Anderson and Southern Wesleyan have a meeting scheduled at Central, neighboring rivals there. North Greenville's at Coker for a non-conference game on Tuesday. Spartanburg Methodist goes down to play Georgia Gwinnett, which is ranked either number 1 or number 2 in the country in NAI, depending on how you which poll you look at. The Pioneers played host to Georgia Gwinnett a few weeks back, and it was not a pretty sight. Georgia Gwinnett's good. Wofford tries to extend its winning streak on Tuesday with a home game against Queens. Charleston Southern goes over the Ravenel Bridge to play, or they may go over I-526, who knows. But they'll be playing College of Charleston at Patriots Point in a 6 o'clock game. Coastal Carolina goes up to UNC Wilmington, another neighboring rivalry. Chanticleer is trying to bounce back from a 2-2 week. UNCW is a dangerous team. Elon is at Winthrop, repaying the visit that Winthrop made to Elon last week, and the Eagles won that game 13-3. Have to be careful they don't have a letdown after those big wins over Upstate. USC Aiken's at Francis Marion, another good non-conference matchup going on there. 6 o'clock game in Florence. Presbyterian is at South Carolina. Gamecocks trying to get right. PC's not an easy out. They've got some very good players like Amon Dewberry and Emory Guilford. So South Carolina cannot be looking past PC. And finally, USC Upstate tries to right its ship against Clemson at a 7 o'clock game over at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. The Spartans played Clemson pretty good a couple of times last year, but we'll just see how they bounce back from that tough loss at Winthrop. I hope it's not one of those things that kind of lingers with them or hangs on with them for more than one game. Anyway, on Wednesday there are a few games. Bob Jones is at Payne for a doubleheader, and I'm really, really surprised that Bob Jones plays games on Wednesday. Since it's a big midweek prayer service night for a lot of churches. But I just, for whatever reason, they're playing Payne for a doubleheader on Wednesday. The Citadel goes over to Georgia Southern for a relatively short trip. That's another good possibility for a win for the Bulldogs. No game scheduled on Thursday, which is nice. On Friday, some of the series starting up. Benedict has a SIAC series at Miles. Georgia College is at Claflin on Friday. Lander plays St. Leo out of the conference. Like St. Leo's down in Florida. Francis Marion is at King in a series that they should do well in Conference Carolinas. Newberry's at Mars Hill, trying to get its ship righted. Spartanburg Methodist is at Montreat in an AAC game. It's a regular season finale for them. North Greenville's at Emmanuel. The Trailblazers have to make sure they don't stumble in that series. They have a 2-game lead in the conference with 3 games remaining. So they take care of business. They're going to be top seed for the region for the conference tournament. Anderson's at Wingate. Wingate's another good ranked South Atlantic Conference team. Southern Western plays host to Shorter, a series they should be competitive in. Campbell's at College of Charleston. The Campbells have been playing really well right now. It'll be a tough test to the Cougars. We'll see how they can do. Charleston Southern's at UNC Asheville. Clemson's at Louisville. The Tigers, this is a series they really, really, really need to win, if not sweep, to keep the talk of possibly getting an at-large bid earned in that. We'll talk more about the standings in the ACC later. Erskine is at Young Harris in a tough matchup. Georgia College is at Claflin. I mentioned that. Well, I've actually got them written down twice on Friday, so pardon me on that. Middle Georgia is at USC Beaufort. North Georgia is at USC Aiken. Again, tough challenge for the Pacers in this one. Radford's at Presbyterian in the Big South. Texas State is at Coastal Carolina. Tusculum's at Coker. UNC Greensboro is at the Citadel. This is a couple of the middle-of-the-pack teams in the conference. USC Upstate steps out of the conference and weekend to play at Sanford. Winthrop's at Gardner-Webb. Wofford is at Mercer. That's a big showdown in the Southern Conference. And Kentucky is at South Carolina. That's a series that the Gamecocks, like Clemson, they've really got to win and possibly even sweep if they want to have any kind of chance of climbing much in the conference standings. Some of the games that start on Saturday in Region 10, Florence Darlington Tech is at USC Union after FD Tech lost 2 this past weekend. They can't overlook anybody. USC Lancaster's at Gaston College, and USC Salkehatchie is at USC Sumter. Looks like that takes care of most of the games involving teams this coming week as far as the highlights. So how about the vibes for the teams that are going on? Coastal Carolina, I know they didn't like the way they lost that game against Georgia State, given the Panthers a lot of help in getting that 6-run rally on Sunday to avoid to miss out on getting a series sweep. Clemson, I think they feel intent that they've got to go 4-0 this week. They played Virginia pretty close, but Virginia just had too much for the Tigers. And the breaks went Virginia's way too, I think, in a couple of situations as that went on. Winthrop, I think they've got to feel real good about themselves right now. They positive vibes after that series sweep. Wofford, I think, is playing with a lot of confidence, a lot of momentum. They're 8-0, leading the Southern Conference, as we'll mention in the standings later. South Carolina, I think, frustrated. They can't win for losing, and a lot of times they're hurting themselves with their own mistakes, whether it's physical mistakes or mental mistakes that they're making. College of Charleston, I think, even though they did not get the sweep up at William & Mary, they probably feel pretty good about themselves. Reese Holbrook's really been playing well for the Cougars lately. He did not get a hit on Sunday, but he'd made several key hits for them earlier in the winning streak they had. And Dylan Johnson's just been a force both at the plate and behind the plate as throwing out base runners. He's thrown out 51 now for his career with the Cougars. The Citadel, I think, feeling decent about themselves. They held in pretty well against East Tennessee State in Game 1. They won Game 2, and I may have that reversed, I'm sorry. But anyway, they kind of gave it up late. I don't say gave it up, but East Tennessee State took charge late, and it wasn't close as the game may have looked earlier in the game, in that Sunday game in the final. Charleston Southern, I think they like the fact they got a win over High Point to avoid being swept. They feel decent about themselves. High Point's a team ahead of them in the standings, and they prove they can play with teams that are better than them. Presbyterian, I know they'd feel a lot better about themselves if they'd won that Sunday game after coming from behind. They trailed 5-0, scored 5 in the 8th, but gave up 1 at the bottom of the 8th. If they'd got the win there, it felt pretty good on that bus ride back home from Farmville, Virginia. In Division II, North Greenville, I think, are probably feeling as good as they can. They're probably feeling so good they got to figure out, wait, is something bad going to happen to us? Because everything just seems to be going their way right now. In Game 1 against Shawan on Saturday, they were down 4-2 going to the bottom of the 6th. And so what do? They score 11 runs in the 6th inning and win, and then cruise into Game 2 of the doubleheader on Saturday. Won 15 straight. They're 40-7, so they're doing well. Francis Marion, I know they're probably looking at themselves and say, how did we blow that Saturday Game 1 against Erskine? Erskine's got a good team, but overall, Francis Marion's been playing really well at 37-9. I think they're playing a lot of confidence, getting some record-setting performances from some of their offensive players. And you can't just count on 1 or 2 players. They've got a bunch. They've got Riley Orr, in addition to McAnally and Bussey. Will Durrell, other guys that are going on. Richie Jordan on the mound is the school's career wins leader. So, I mean, the Patriots of Jeff Jefferson, he's got got a lot of weapons right there, and the weapons are coming through for them right now. USC-Aiken, I think they probably kicking themselves for losing the middle game of the series against Georgia College, but they did win 2 out of 3, and they held on after Georgia College tried to make a comeback on Sunday to get the series win. Erskine, I think, giving up 25 runs in Game 3 of the series to Francis Marion probably doesn't feel good. But they showed that they can hit the ball against Francis Marion. They scored a bunch of runs as well. They aren't going to probably face many better offenses than they faced when they faced Francis Marion, and they hung pretty well with them. Newberry, I think they're probably frustrated a little bit. They played 3 pretty close games against Catawba. A couple of them they actually tied at one point and just were not able to get over the hump. But they're kind of frustrated about that. Benedict, I think, feeling pretty good. 9 games over 500. They've won 3 straight games. Looking forward to getting back and climbing more in the SIA standings. Anderson, I think, has a good feeling after that Game 2 win, opener on Saturday against Virginia Wise. They got a great pitching performance from, I think, 3 guys for a shutout in Game 2. It was a run rule win, 15-0. So the Trojans are only 1 game under 500, so I think they feel decent. They probably would like to be a little bit better in the conference than they are, but it is what it is. Southern Wesleyan's shown they can put runs on the board. I think the main thing's been being able to stop the other team from scoring as well. But getting a nice offensive performance in Game 3 on Saturday probably had them enjoying the bus ride home a little bit better. Cougars just not been having much good luck happen to them lately at all. Went 1-3, got swept by Carson Newman. So I think they're probably a little bit down, especially after the fact they played so well last year. It is another year, different players and things like that. But I think that Coker entered the season feeling that things go right, they could be contending, but it has not worked out. USC Beaufort's been struggling in the Peach Belt. I think they probably feel a little down. Getting run ruled 3 times in the weekend is never a good thing. Claflin, pretty much the same thing. They got run ruled down at Flagler. The Panthers have just shown it's really tough for them to be competitive in the Peach Belt Conference, the way things are going. Pardon me for taking a drink of Diet Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper Zero, excuse me. Not a sponsor, but I'll give them a plug anyway. Well, the NAIA teams, Spartanburg Methodist, feeling pretty good about themselves. Got that nice win at Union. It's a series they should have won. They just need to make sure they don't get emotionally beaten down by what may happen to them against Georgia Gwinnett. I know they go in there expecting they're going to play their best and have a chance at winning. It takes good things to go well for them for that to happen. Columbia International, overall, it's been a better second half of the season than the first half of the season, but I'm sure they're still not exactly where they would like to be right now. Morris seems to be doing pretty well. They lost one of the better players in Adrian Canonis to an injury a few weeks back, but they can still put up some runs. I think one of their issues is just get enough pitching to help to hold off the other teams. Bob Jones got that win on Friday night. They've had some good offensive performances. Getting good enough pitching, particularly out of the bullpen, has been a struggle for them all year. But they're still playing. A couple of years ago, the school decided to drop baseball, but they brought it back after a campaign, and they're still playing and they're still trying to build something over there. Voorhees, I think, feeling pretty good about themselves with the 3 wins over Oakwood. Stole a lot of bases, as I mentioned. They've won 10 games this year, so they're trying to plug along, make their program get better. Forest Arlington Tech, I'm sure there's some disappointment. They expected or anticipated to be in the regular season race in Region 10, probably up until the final weekend. Of course, there's only one weekend left, but still, the 2 losses, plus the fact that Gaston College is playing so well, knocked the Stingers out of contention for the regular season championship this weekend. Forest Arlington Tech, going 3-2 against 5 games against ranked teams. I think they're feeling really good right now. Ryan Pikatowski, and Carew Bates have been a good 1-2 punch. Jeb Britt's been pitching well for them on the mound. They've got some other guys that have contributed to them as well. So I think they're on the upswing, feeling like they're on the upswing at Sumter. Ditto for USC Union, getting that nice win over Lancaster. If they'd gone another direction, they'd find themselves in 5th place. But as it is, they're in 4th place by a couple of games over the Lancers. Old habits die hard, excuse me. USC Lancaster, Union handled them pretty good overall, but I think, they just need to put that behind them and try to build from there and get something good going on. USC Salcahatchee, again, it's just not much good has happened for the Indians this year. I know they'd like to have something kind of decent finish to just give them a something to build on for next season. I know they've gone 31 games. So it's probably like over a month and a half or so since they won a game, and that's not good for anybody as far as keeping up your attitude. So hopefully something good can happen for them later. And Denmark Tech, as I mentioned, has completed its season, first season back since 2004. Well, how about the conference standings? Let's look at that. Georgia Tech lost 2 out of 3 to North Carolina. They did salvage the finale on Sunday, and the Yellow Jackets have a 1-game lead over UNC in the ACC standings. The Yellow Jackets are 16-5 in the conference. North Carolina is 15-6. 1 game back of the Tar Heels is Todd Interdonato's Boston College team. Of course, Interdonato used to be at Wofford before he went up to BC, and he's got them playing good baseball there, 31-12 overall. Florida State's at 12-6. Virginia's at 12-9. Miami's at 10-8. Wake Forest is at 11-10. NC State's at 9-9. Virginia Tech is at 9-11. But look at this. Pitt, Louisville, Stanford are all 7-11. They're just one game ahead of Clemson in the standings. Duke is at 8-13. They're a half game ahead of Clemson in the standings. So if Clemson has a good weekend against Louisville, they could climb up in the standings pretty good and really improve their seeding for the ACC tournament. But right now the Tigers are tied for 14th, which also means they're tied for last, with California, who's also 6-12. Clemson will get the head-to-head tiebreaker over that. And they're also with Notre Dame, who's played one more series, but they're 7-14. Percentage-wise, they're the same, even though Notre Dame is a half game back. In the SEC, Georgia is at 13-5. They're in first place in the league. You probably saw the score on Saturday finale of their series with Arkansas. They won 26-14, and I believe someone told me they scored 14 runs in the ninth. It may have been 12 runs in the ninth, but it was in double digits, and so the Dogs are doing pretty well. They're 13-5. They're a half game up over Texas A&M. Aggies coming off a sweep of LSU, and they're a half game back, as I said. Half game back because the Texas and A&M series finale last Sunday was washed out. So the Aggies, that's why they could not be possibly in a tie. Texas is in third place at 11-6. After that, you've got 5 teams at 10-8. Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Auburn, Oklahoma, and Florida, all at 10-8. 9-9, you have Alabama, Arkansas, Vanderbilt. 8-10, Kentucky and Tennessee. 6-12, LSU. 5-13 is Carolina, and 3-15 is Missouri. Kentucky is 3 games ahead of Carolina. Carolina sweeps that, they could climb in the standings some. They possibly could move past LSU, depending on what else goes on. So Carolina's picked to finish 15th in the conference. That's where they are right now. If they want to be able to climb, they're going to probably need to win 2, maybe 3 against Kentucky this week. In the Big South Conference, Winthrop, as I mentioned, is still in first place after that series sweep over Upstate. High Point is a half game back at 11-4. Longwood then is at 8-7. Charleston Southern's at 7-8, as is Radford. Upstate, with that series loss, is now at 8-10. Gardner Webb's at 6-9. That's next up for the Eagles. Presbyterian is at 5-10, and UNC Asheville is at 4-8. In the Coastal Athletic Association, Charleston is then tied for second place in the South Division. The Cougars and UNCW are both at 10-8. Campbell is in first place. They're at 17-4, so they are 5.5 games ahead of the Cougars. Charleston can't make it up all at one time. They do play host to Campbell this weekend. A series win, a series sweep, and they could get a lot closer in the standings. Northeastern, by the way, has a lead over over Monmouth in the North Division. Northeastern's at 13-5, Monmouth's at 15-6. In the Sun Belt Conference, even though they lost Sunday's game to Georgia State, Coastal Carolina has a nice 4-game cushion over Southern Mississippi with 4 weeks of conference play to go. The Chanticleer is 15-3, and Southern Miss is 11-7. South Alabama and App State and Troy are 1 game back of Southern Miss at 10-8. So that's a lot of possible movement there. In another game back at 9-9 are Texas State, Arkansas State, ULM, and Marshall. 2 games further back, Old Dominion and Georgia State. At 7-11 is Louisiana. By the way, Old Dominion and Georgia State are at 8-10. So there could be a lot of churn in the middle of the Sun Belt standings, depending on what happens over this week. Moving on to Division II. In Conference Carolinas, as I mentioned, this is the final week of play for that league. North Greenville has a 2-game cushion over Francis Marion. They are 2-game cushion over Francis Marion. 3 games remaining in the season, and if the Crusaders win 2 out of 3 this weekend, they will clinch the regular season championship. They're awfully close right now. Belmont Abbey is at 23-7, and Young Harris is at 23-7. They technically could tie North Greenville for first place if they sweep. North Greenville gets swept. Francis Marion could even move past the Crusaders, the Trailblazers, if they were to sweep and North Greenville gets swept. That's easier said than done. Of course, all those teams are playing well. North Greenville 26-4, Francis Marion 24-6, Belmont Abbey 23-7, and Young Harris at 23-7. Erskine is at 18-12. They're tied for fifth place with UNC Pembroke and Mount Olive. Southern Wesleyan is at 9-21. They are tied for 10th place with Southern Wesleyan. In the Peach Belt Conference, as I mentioned, North Georgia's already clinched the regular season championship. USC Aiken is 5 games back. The Nighthawks are 24-3. Aiken is at 19-8. Columbus State is 1 game behind the Pacers, and Lander at 20-10 is 2 games behind the Pacers. The Bearcats have completed their regular season. USC Beaufort and Claflin are last and next to last in the conference. Beaufort's at 4-23 in the league. Claflin is at 1-26. In the South Atlantic Conference, Catawba, with that sweep of Newberry over the weekend, clinched the regular season championship. The Indians are 26-4 in the conference. Wingett's at 22-8, so they cannot catch them. In third place at 21-8-1 is Lenore Ryan. Mars Hill is at 18-11-1. Then you got Lincoln Memorial at 18-12. Newberry is in sixth place at 17-13. Anderson is at 10-20. They are in eighth place. Coker is in 10th place at 9-21. In the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, Spring Hill has a 3.5 game lead over Albany State. Spring Hill is 26-4. Albany State is 21-6. Edward Waters is at 21-9. Savannah State is at 20-10, and Benedict is at 17-10. I don't know that the Tigers will get to make up their home series with Albany State. It was canceled or postponed last weekend because the Albany State coach had some issues with the field conditions. I don't think there's a way they could work it in to make it up. So the Tigers are probably going to miss that chance to pick up some ground head-to-head on Albany. In NAIA, in the Appalachian Athletic Conference, Milligan is in first place at 20-4. Johnson is a game back at 19-4. They had a rain out at some point. Tennessee Wesleyan is 2 games behind Milligan at 18-6. Then we got Spartanburg Methodist and Bryan tied for fourth at 14-10. Montreat's at 13-11, and as I mentioned, the Pioneers are playing Montreat this weekend, so they need to win that to fight off the Cavaliers in that. Columbia International is at 12-14, and they're down in the standings. They're at 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, ninth place in the standings. In the HBCU Athletic Conference, Voorhees is in fourth place in the East Division with a 9-10 record. They are well behind Talladega, who's 19-2, and they've wrapped up the regular season championship. Second place is Stillman at 14-6, then Wilberforce at 10-9, and Voorhees is at 9-10, as I mentioned. In Region 10, Gaston College has a 4-game lead with 3 games to go, so they've won the regular season championship in Region 10. The Rhinos are 46-3 overall, 24-3 in the region. Forest Arlington Tech with a 2-2 week. They're now 20-7 in the region, 42-10 overall. Still a fine season. They're still ranked in the top 10 nationally, but they can't check off the regular season championship on their resume or on their checklist. USC Sumter's at 14-12 in the conference. USC Union's at 10-15. USC Lancaster's at 9-16, and USC Salkehatchie is at 1-25. Well, that kind of covers everything that's going on in the state of college baseball in the state of South Carolina for this past week and looking ahead a little bit. I hope you enjoy the coverage I provide at PalmettoStateBaseball.com. I do in-game updates and the like, and on X under the handle of Palmetto Base. I would really like to hear from you if you like what I try to do with college baseball in the state. Message me on X, email me at rudyjones@PalmettoStateBaseball.com, or just comment on one of the posts on PalmettoStateBaseball.com. I'd really like to know if you find what I'm doing informative and interesting. You know, if nobody's enjoying it but me, I can read it and not have to share it with anybody. But again, I hope that you are liking it. Don't forget, you can also join the Palmetto State Baseball group on Facebook. I want that to be a place where fans of all levels of college baseball in South Carolina can get together to discuss the great sport that it is. For now, This is Rudy Jones of Pamela State Baseball for That Was the Week That Was for April the 13th through the 19th, saying good night, God bless, Jesus loves you.